Hello, welcome back to the booth. Brian David Marshall here with Ian Duke, and we are getting ready for the last round of Dragons of Tarkir draft action here today. And while we will be sad to put draft aside until tomorrow morning, we're also pretty excited that we're getting that much closer to seeing what the pros have cooked up in
There's still more
Standard.
dragons to come, I think.
We're not done with the dragoning. But in the meantime, we have one more round of draft to get to. It's been exciting so far. I've seen a lot of interesting takes on it, and we're ready to go. So let's send it down to the floor. Hello and welcome to the feature match area here in round 3 of Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. I'm Brian David Marshall. I'm joined by Ian Duke, and we are about to watch Matej Zatlkaj. There you see him. He'd be famous just as a coverage guy, but you know what? This is also someone who's done some hard work on the Pro Tour, has a handful of top 8s, and, is someone who's thinking about his Hall of Fame resume. There you see someone who's already in the Hall of Fame, Frank Karsten of the Netherlands, one of the mad scientists of Magic, known for his, coming up with, decks with 3.1 copies of a card in it, known for his love of Highlander, and both of these players are 1-1 as we head into the last round of draft, and there you see a Mardu Scout. It's not dashed in, it's going to stick with red. Sometimes pretty challenging to do in this format to get red on turn 2.
Yeah, so Zatlkaj on a red-white, relatively aggressive deck, Karsten on black-red. So we have sort of two aggressive decks battling against each other here. It'd be interesting to see, how they match up with their early creatures and who decides to take the more aggressive role versus who tries to defend themselves. Looks like Karsten off to an aggressive start here. With
Frank talked about his risky keep not paying off, and then when Matej Zatlkaj's morph got twin bolted, he's like, "Oh yeah, risky 2-drop and a removal spell."
Yeah.
Felt like such a lucky man. But no. Yep.
So we actually see Karsten stuck on 2 lands, but Zatlkaj has 4 in play plus 2 more in his hand. So we might be seeing the classic mana screw versus mana flood. And I think it'll all depend on how quickly Karsten can draw out of.
Yeah, now he's got to deal with a Champion of Arax, which can be.
Yeah, so the Champion of Arax as a 3/2 with lifelink is actually pretty strong here in this aggressive matchup. I mean, it's going to trade with a creature and gain back some life, which should give Zatlkaj a chance to stabilize the board here. But unfortunately, Big Z looking pretty flooded here compared to Karsten, who's got plenty of gas in hand, but not enough mana to cast everything that he has.
And he does choose to block. And Zatlkaj gains a little life back, but a Fierce Invocation gives him a 4/4.
And we'll take a look at what that manifest is for you in just a moment.
Comes into play with 2 counters on it.
So Karsten, yeah, plenty of action here in hand, but lacking a swamp. Oh, actually, looks like he just picked up his swamp this turn. So just debating his options before he goes ahead and reveals that he did draw that swamp. He may want to, for example, attack first with the Mardu Scout and then play the Hooded Assassin to finish off the 4/4 creature afterwards. Looks like he opts not to go for that play, though.
Interesting card in Matej Zatlkaj's deck, Descent of the Dragons.
Yeah, what do you make of Descent of the Dragons? Is that a card you're usually looking to play in Limited?
I've not something I've even considered, but I guess if you have a bunch of random guy, wow, look at this. Summit Prowler and Humble Defector now.
Humble Defector probably staying loyal for the time being, given Frank Karsten's
there's a 0 chance you would give that hand that over to Frank.
Yep. So Frank thinking long and carefully about how to sequence his next plays because he's got a lot to deploy in his hand, and the order he does it in might mean the difference between life and death, or having enough time to deploy everything that he has in his hand.
Yeah.
So that's an Tarkir Freet, by the way, that's face down for.
Oh, interesting. An Tarkir Freet with 2+1/+1 counters on it is a pretty scary thing, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You meant the morph that Karsten just played. Okay, my mistake there.
Yeah. So sorry, it's what Frank played. So he actually gets to take out the Humble Defector, or, and completely ambush. Oh wow, look at that. That's a Summit
Prowler. Okay.
Wow, 6 power Summit Prowler. But that also falls to the Tarkir Freet.
That's true. And Frank with a flatten in hand, just looking to buy a little bit of time until he gets up to 4 mana.
He just passed the turn here?
Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, a Tarkir Freet can turn face up for 3 mana, but if Frank passes the turn without doing anything and Zatlkaj doesn't take the bait by attacking into it, then he's in rough shape. So yeah, he sure enough goes ahead and turns it up on his own turn. Takes out the Humble Defector.
Well, I guess the problem being if he tries to take out the Humble Defector on Matej's turn, Matej gets to draw 2 cards.
So Karsten is looking at making a big attack here. I mean, if he attacks with all 3 creatures and Zatlkaj doesn't have anything, then he has to block with the Summit Prowler.
Yeah, no, he just decides to attack.
He decides to play conservatively, yeah.
Yeah, plenty of cards for Karsten. See Sarkhan's Rage in hand for Zatlkaj. Zatlkaj's down to 7 here.
Yeah, but Sarkhan's Rage can go directly to a player.
Yeah.
Which means if that 6/5 Summit Prowler connects one more time, Frank Karsten will be dead.
You see Frank making some notes. He just has some stuff to keep in mind for the next game.
And Frank's Atarka Efreet hoping to block here. And
Sandblast says, sure, you might block, but it might not be very effective.
Oh, interesting pickup for Zatlkaj.
So he's finally deployed all the lands in his hand. And is left with Sandblast and Sarkhan's Rage. 2 Summit Prowlers come in. And he's got enough to do both here.
Yeah, so I assume Frank's block is the Atarka Efreet on the larger Summit Prowler and the Mardu Scout on the smaller one.
Yep, and that's what he does. He's like, oh, I trade
Sandblast taking out the taking out the Atarka Efreet. But overall, I mean, a decent trade for Frank Karsten, but he does have to answer that Summit Prowler because, as we know, Matej Zatlkaj has a Sarkhan's Rage in his hand.
Wow.
Which will deal 5 damage to Karsten's face. And Karsten's still just stuck.
It looks like he just drew his 4th land, but even the flatten is not going to be good enough here.
Yeah, I mean, he can attack again with the Reckless Imp and just play a Scream Reach Brawler as a blocker for a turn. He does have his 4th mana for a flatten, but flatten, of course, can't take out the 6/5 Summit Prowler.
Karsten has decided, well, I'm going to try to win this over 2 turns here.
Yep, so he dashes the Scream Reach Brawler, and I'm sure he's going to play a Kolagon Skirmisher as a blocker here. And now we'll see, Zatlkaj could Sarkhan's Rage that at the end of the turn. And then
but he would go
6,
to 1 as part of doing that.
Great point. Yep, so that's not really an option here.
Zatlkaj has it look like, am I really going to lose this game?
So Karsten, I'm sure, planning to block with the Kolagon Skirmisher here.
He's like, am I actually going to lose this?
Although, there's a chance not. Of course, if Karsten declines the block, he's just immediately dead, but wisely decides to
Oh! Gains 3 life.
Wow.
Arax and Cleric.
Yikes. So we'll take a look at Karsten's options here. He did, interestingly, just pick up a Kindled Fury. Which can help him squeak out 1 more damage, but even Mardu Runemark plus Kindled Fury is only 5 this turn, so he can't win with the Reckless Imp.
Looks like he's going to play the Scream Reach Berserker.
Yeah, I think what Karsten needs to do is attack with the Imp, knocking Zatlkaj down to 4, play the Scream Reach Berserker, block the Summit Prowler, and then next turn try to play Mardu Runemark on the Imp and
Right.
Kindled Fury, if need be. Well, I guess he wouldn't need to then, just the Mark.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Wait. I'm still thinking.
So Karsten attempting a rune mark on his Imp. Zatlkaj debating whether he wants to Sarkhan's Rage.
I'll respond.
wow. Decides to respond.
Very interesting. So if Zatlkaj hadn't responded there, Karsten would just be dead. He doesn't
I
have
guess-
enough mana to play a follow-up blocker. But Zatlkaj sort of taking a conservative route from his standpoint. He doesn't want to lose to like collateral damage.
I was just
plus
going to
the
say
rune
collateral
mark.
damage is the only card I can really think of there that's going to finish you off on one mana, but I mean, it could be a Twin Bolt or...
There.
You didn't think?
Well,
And now Karsten's sort of in chump block mode here
Well, you
with
could
that
not
Summit
block
Prowler
this.
Oh
threatening
yeah,
to,
I mean,
to kill him.
he's got to not take 6.
He does have the Kindled Rage, but even the Scream Reach Brawler plus Kindled Rage isn't enough to take down the Summit Prowler.
Yeah, that's a Misthoof Kieran, by the way, that's face down for Zatlkaj.
I'm not playing it earlier.
Okay, so things definitely looking
It's
pretty
super
grim for
scary,
Karsten
right?
here.
So-
yeah, I thought you just stopped like this and had
Yeah, yeah.
nothing
Yeah, yeah,
before,
yeah.
so.
I had a rage, but
Felt this.
drawing this, like,
I'm not really sure.
On the back tables, by the way, Joel Larson is up 1 game on Marin LeBarre. Hometown hero, Marin LeBarre.
Go.
So there's the Summit Prowler, flip up the Misthoof Kieran, and on to game 2. Mana Flood coming out ahead of Mana Screw in an unusual turn of events.
Yeah, it's true. Nevertheless, a couple really interesting combat turns in that game. I'd love to go back and rewatch it and just think about each of those turns from both players' perspectives.
All right, well, we can think about it a little bit while we take a brief break for these messages.
Your dragon, their doom. Dragons of Tarkir is now available on Magic Online. Dive into the new set by signing up for Magic Online at mtgo.com. Make Magic history by joining in on the biggest Magic Premier Play weekend ever, featuring events in Chiba, Utrecht, and Las Vegas. Pre-register now at magic.wizards.com/Modern Masters Weekend.
All right, welcome back to the feature match area. We are going to come back to Matej Zatlkaj versus Frank Karsten, but in the meantime, we're going to take a quick look in on Adrian Sullivan versus Pro Tour Cons of Tarkir champion Arax. So there's a lot going on here. See some. So there's a. All right. So the first thing you need to know about this board is that Illusory Gains is in play for Arax. Adrian casts Sidisi Undead Vizier. And it's not. We don't really. So the Sidisi is ending up under Ari's control.
Okay.
This is the beginning.
All right.
I have gained 1 life off of you casting Sidisi, correct?
Okay. So we do
This.
DC, gain a life.
So triggers go on the stack for Sidisi, and my illusory gains. My illusory gains. It's my turn. Illusory gains resolves first. This goes back to him. This goes to
So
me.
hold up one
So,
second. So the exploit is on the stack below all of this. Okay. So then we have
And
the switch.
this is already resolved.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're here, and then first question is now
you-
I have said that I am going to exploit.
The Sultai
Yeah,
emissary.
yes, the Sultai emissary. Can I actually exploit this? Because I am no longer the you.
Exploit is an ability that says that you can sacrifice a creature.
Yes.
The
On the
ability
stack.
resolves, and you can choose to use it when you resolve it.
Okay, and I
When
did.
it resolves.
And I did choose to use it. So now it is sacrificed.
Okay.
And now on the stack is manifest. Yes. Over that, is that correct?
No.
What
These
is
two.
the manifest?
No, the manifest is happens next.
So we have two triggers going on the stack when the exploit happens, right? We have this dying
Yes.
and the exploit trigger. It is your turn, so your trigger is on the stack underneath mine.
Correct.
Okay.
So your manifest trigger is on the bottom of the stack, and the exploit trigger is on top.
Yes.
I would
because
like to
it-
resolve my exploit
because
trigger.
it's
Okay.
your
And
turn.
now he gets the tutor. Is that correct?
Yes, because these
Okay.
two abilities
There we go.
are
Wow.
Okay, that's very unfortunate. That's, and then after he does that, then we will manifest. Okay.
Double check and make sure that this
I
is.
did not think that's how that worked. Okay. Very sad.
So just to clarify what happened a little bit there,
gonna
illusory
take-
gains let Ari Lax take control of Adrian Sullivan's Sidisi in between the exploit trigger going on the stack and resolving. Then Adrian Sullivan chose to resolve the exploit and sacrifice a creature, but now Ari Lax controls the Sidisi, so he actually gets to tutor. So a little bit of confusion there, a little bit of interesting rules minutia, but the result was Adrian Sullivan sacrificed his own creature to allow Ari Lax to demonic tutor.
That is insane. And Ari then gets the manifest creature because then there's one more trigger on the illusory gains.
Oh, that's right.
So he doesn't get to keep the
Okay.
Vizier,
So he
unfortunately.
doesn't keep Sidisi.
It's not completely magical Christmas land here.
It's reasonably magical Christmas land.
I will have you at 14.
Correct.
Two cards.
On the King of the Hill table, by the way, Patrick Chapin up a game and halfway to a 3-0 over Janik Masic.
Return him to the earth. This one, the one that gains you life.
So it looks like Adrian Sullivan's Sunscorch Regent is being returned to the earth.
I will Tigum strike my Elkhart.
Tygum Strike the Elkhart. Not clear if that's the card he tutored for or not.
Yeah, it could very well be. I mean, 5 plus 2 is 7. That's half of Adrian Sullivan's life total, and the rebound would finish him off the following turn. So
Yeah.
that may have been the card that Ari chose from the demonic tutor.
So attacking for 9 here, including the Jin token. Or he's thinking about the Jin token.
7.
I'm thinking real fast. I have to do some math.
Meanwhile, Adrian Sullivan has Glaring Aegis on Avon Sunstriker with a +1/+1 counter, making it a 3-power double striker in the air. And Ari is at 6. However, Ari has a couple Jin tokens back.
Yeah, and
to
he
block.
decided to keep both of them back rather than attack with one. for
Yeah,
exactly that reason.
I think it's just too risky.
All right, I think we've seen the highlight here, which is the you exploit, I'll tutor for Ari Lax. But let's go back to our main match between Matej Zatlkaj and Frank Karsten, which is already underway. I see a battle brawler in play for Karsten and a humble defector in play for Matej Zatlkaj. There we go. And there you get a look at the hands. Once again,
Marty Scout.
man is a little tight
What took you so? 17?
for Karsten.
You forgot to play
By the way, the what was going on with the
Just checking.
Sarkin's Fury last turn is Karsten would have dropped Matej to 2 with that attack if the Mardu Rune Mark had resolved.
Right.
So it would have basically shut off the Sarkin's Fury. He would not have been able to cast it.
Great point, great
so
point.
there's no reason not to use it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry. 15.
So here comes a Gore Swine for Karsten.
Swiney himself.
Summit Prowler's been an all-star.
Yeah, he remains just as solid as he was in the Khan's world.
I don't know, somehow he seems a little better in this world.
One of the few constants of the
Yeah.
the timeline shift, huh?
Yeah, mind blown the first time I realized it wasn't actually a complete art reprint. And that
Right.
there are dragons in the background.
Yeah, notably this being a 2-color format, it's a little bit easier to cast, and it's a little bit more of an aggressive format, so just having a solid forecasting cost creature, often great. So the two players just sort of exchanging early creatures here. Matej Zatlkaj notably choosing to leave his morph untapped as a blocker.
So Flatten takes down the Summit Prowler, trades the morph for a Goreswine. By the way, Arax did win that game against Adrian Sullivan. Taigam Strike came back, and he was able to take it in 2 attacks. Another Summit Prowler for Zatlkaj. How many of those does he have in his deck? Just the 2. Yeah, see, he's Karsten. Hard casts a Goblin Heel Cutter. Another card that seems to have gone up.
The Irration Cleric.
Yeah, the Irration Cleric. Just again, probably because the format's faster. Gaining that life is more valuable, and also just getting a cheap creature down to gum up the board.
Yeah, there are also a lot of 1 toughness creatures in Dragons,
Okay.
so it can actually effectively trade.
So Dash is in the Mardu Scout for Frank Karsten.
So we'll see if he attacks with the Heel Cutter at the Scout and makes the Cleric unable to block, or just attacks with everything and makes the Summit Prowler unable to block. I think I like the first of those better, but it also depends on whether he thinks Zatlkaj has a trick in his hand.
Yep. Everybody. Yep. And then
Yep, and sure enough, the Cleric snaps off the block on the Mardu Scout and a Sandblast.
Wow.
So not the way that Karsten wanted that combat exchange to go. Yeah, I think offering the trade between the Mardu Scout and the Cleric was definitely like something to consider hard there.
right, then plays a Colligan Aspirant. Matej down to 14. You look at Colligan Aspirant. That also can attack into the Summit Prowler.
Zatlkaj sitting on Enduring Victory. And I think another Sandblast, is that right? Looks to be.
We'll see.
So we'll see if he just takes the opportunity to be mana efficient and plays the Enduring Victory, and sure enough he does.
And makes a 5/4 Summit Prowler along the way.
Yeah. I
By
think
the way.
Enduring Victory was one of those cards that it's mana intensive enough that you kind of just want to cast it when you can, even
Yeah.
if you're only taking out a 2/1 in this case.
So Noxious Dragon comes down.
And I have a 5/4.
So Noxious Dragon keys off of converted mana cost, so it won't be able to kill the Summit Prowler.
At least I hope so.
So I think Zatlkaj is going to try to set up a Sandblast on the Noxious Dragon, which shouldn't be too tough, because I think the Dragon's probably coming in
And he's
next
just,
turn.
he sends in his Summit Prowler. He says, do you want to block now?
Right. And Karsten says, no, I'll keep my flyer. But little does he know, Zatlkaj is prepared with the Sandblast.
Address is one bit, but I'll take.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Zatlkaj asks him, would you like to destroy your own Kolagon Skirmisher?
Any interest? No?
Karsten
Okay.
declines.
Yes, that's how you get into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So Deathwind takes down the Summit Prowler, and 2 morphs come down for Matej Zatlkaj. I know at least one of them is a Misthoof Kieran.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I guess the race is on. I'll dash and
You're dashing.
attack with both.
That case, I might trade. You're on 15?
So Reckless Imp off the top for Karsten dashes in.
Yeah, I'll trade.
prompting a trade from Zatlkaj.
So he trades his Mistoof Kieran, but keeps his Stormcrag Elemental.
So
And-
Stormcrag Elemental, not the most efficient card, but it is a heavy hitter here.
Yeah, basically when you get to unmorph it, it's a 6/6.
Notably
it's a-
with trample too, so it's going to be hard to race. But Karsten, pecking away with the imp, and probably looking for a removal spell to take care of that Stormcrag Elemental.
Yeah.
There's
Really-
not many creatures in red and black that
Yep.
can answer that. Yeah, and sure enough, there goes the
There you go.
handshake.
Matej Zatlkaj advances 2-1. And Frank Karsten, the Hall of Famer, falls to 1-2.
Less aggressively.
Yeah. Like if you don't.
So we're going to check in on the King of the Hill table, where Patrick Chapin, the Pro Tour Hall of Famer, is playing against Matej Janik. Janik is from Poland. And he is here based on his performance at Pro Tour Fate Reforged, where he was a top finisher. So he got an invite here.
Janik with Sidisi Undead Vizier in play as of a couple turns ago. And I do believe he chose to exploit with it, so.
He just cast it, or did he exploit?
No, he did choose to exploit. Yeah.
Okay. See a butcher's glee on top of his graveyard, which may explain the bandage on his hand. Wow. Just unmorphs the giant defender. There's a Palace Familiar for Chapin.
Yeah, Dirger Nemesis opting not to use its one-time attack. And probably setting up to hopefully trade with Sidisi if Chapin's able to.
Yes, exactly.
Vial of Dragonfire. Chapin's up a game in this match.
Throw.
And content to just continue pecking in with his Reckless Imp.
Enhanced awareness.
Yeah, there you go. Enhanced awareness from Chapin. So, draws 3 cards. Every Magic player's favorite words.
That's in hand. No. 3. Okay.
Looks like he found a flatten in there.
Your turn.
And Flatten takes down the Imp. And it's Summit Prowler.
Okay.
He's been ubiquitous this entire set of feature matches. Now it looks like the removal is starting to find its way to the top of Chapin's deck.
Yeah, so
Found a foul renewal, which can be pretty exciting.
yeah, I'm sure Chapin wasn't super excited to have to flatten the Reckless Imp last turn, but he only had an island and a swamp left in his hand. Fortunately, he top decks Foul Renewal this turn, which can provide some much needed card advantage and hopefully swing the tide for him a little bit on this stalled out board state.
So, foul renewal. Gets back. Marshulk takes down Sidisi.
Wow, nicely done for Chapin.
And if you have a card like Foul Renewal, you know, we talk about the megamorphs just being, 3 drops. But, you could trade with them and then know that later in the game, you're able to return them, use that converted mana cost to your advantage.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is face up. Because this is the wrong amount of mana. I apologize.
Okay.
Your turn.
So Chapin chose to play the Marsh Hulk face up rather than morph it. Now he's got defeat for the Typhoid Rats.
Yeah, Chapin's controlling blue-black deck looks to be sort of clawing its way back into the game on the back of some card advantage from Enhanced Awareness into Foul Renewal.
Attacks with the Marsh Hulk and the Palace Familiar.
Yeah, finally able to go on the offensive.
And the Summit Prowler just chumps. And then Vial of Dragonfire finishes it off. And Janik says go.
Yeah, with just a shambling goblin left on the battlefield, Janik seems to be kind of out of steam here.
Yeah, he's counting libraries. Not something I've seen happen often in this draft format.
Yeah, unfortunately for Chapin, he's not able to provide a quick clock here, but he can at least sort of peck away with some 1 and 2 power creatures.
Janik thinking about... no, you don't think about getting your shambling goblin to kill the Palace Familiar at this point?
Yeah. Not what one would call value, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Sorry. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5.
Looks like Patrick Chapin down to just 5 cards in his library. So, yeah, I mean, if Chapin doesn't draw anything to increase his clock, conceivably Janik could just chump block for a few turns. But
That's a Bell Toll Dragon.
yeah, it looks like a Bell Toll
So
Dragon.
the
comes
card
in.
count was relevant here.
I actually, yeah.
But Sarkin's Fury.
You have 5 cards, yes. Draw.
Sarkin's Rage, sorry. And there's a Noxious Dragon for Janik. So he's really just looking, he's just in survival mode here.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's looking like Patrick Chapin is going to have a struggle killing off Janik before he runs out of cards in his library. So even if he does remove that Noxious Dragon, it's still going to take out maybe his Palace Familiar, which then is going to cause him to draw a card. Actually, let me check, is it optional on the Palace Familiar? I'm not even totally
Never
sure on
come
that.
up.
Yeah, no, yeah. It is mandatory, actually, that you must draw a card with Palace Familiars.
Okay.
Shambling Goblin.
Eight. Okay.
Running low on cards here.
9.
Gain a life for Janik.
Yeah, it's looking less and less likely that Chapin will be able to finish off his opponent in time.
Oh, but he's got the Damnable Pact.
Oh, wow.
3, 6, 4, 8, 14. Damnable Pact you for 12.
It's like, I would like you to draw 12 cards.
I
Starts to count his library, then realizes I should count my life total. It's not enough.
I think he was dead in both directions there. So Patrick Chapin remains king of the hill. He's 3-0 in draft, going into standard with a perfect record. This has got to be fantastic news for the innovator. And we still have one match left going on in the feature match area. This is our last featured round of draft coverage. And we see we've got Joel Larson playing against Marin LeBarre. And what is going on here?
Thanks so much. Good luck in the coming rounds.
So Center Soul is rebounding, but there's a Soulfire Grandmaster in play. So Joel Larson is paying to activate the ability of Soulfire Grandmaster and return Center Soul to his hand. And they are waiting on confirmation from a judge that it indeed works that way.
I don't think you can turn back. You can probably take this back. I don't know. This back? I don't know. That sounds good actually. Kind of stupid that he gave you the wrong rule.
So Joel has already spoken to a judge about this privately,
Yeah.
but they're waiting for a public discussion with the judge.
So I'm a bit confused here. If the Center Soul is rebounding from exile, Soulfire Grandmaster says the next time you cast an instant sorcery spell from your hand this turn,
Just from exile.
put it back
So,
into your hand.
okay, there you go.
So this says whenever you cast it from hand. Yeah. This says you cast it from exile when you rebound. So I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. You should probably tell the.
Probably not.
Probably not, says Joel.
So it looks like Marine is explaining things the way that I
that's why I
understand
went
them, which is
over and asked
since you're
like 5
casting the rebounded spell from exile, Soulfire Grandmaster doesn't see it as cast from your hand and will return it to your hand.
Yeah.
But we'll get clarification on that
because
for you
it
folks.
doesn't go into the graveyard. That's why.
Put that card into your
I don't know.
instead of.
I'm not sure either.
And as I understand it, it also doesn't work if you cast a rebound spell from your hand because rebound says you exile it as it resolves. Although I'm not 100% sure on that.
Probably not. As long as I
It
can
may be a
attack
case
it,
where you can
I'm
choose
happy.
which replacement effect to apply.
I mean,
Well, it depends on how rebound is actually.
no, but this is from your hand, so that's.
Because this may not be the actual wording of rebound. This is just kind of like a reminder
Yeah.
for you. They both could be replacement effects, so it might work the first way, but you'd have to.
Well, we got over here.
Yeah. Because like.
Lots of exciting judge rulings here.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
this round.
It looks like Rashad is walking through what I was saying with the players as well, is that
The head judge, Ricardo Tessitore, is on his way over to the match.
yeah, I think in this case you actually have to go beyond what the reminder text says and look at the actual comprehensive rules to see exactly how rebound works. Reminder text, of course, isn't the exact
so
rules
I
text.
can-
It's just there to sort
Last
of
time I played this, my app
give you the gist
came
of
back,
what's going on.
And I wanted to retract it with this, but then Margin read on the card and said it only says from your hand, and I saw that as well, so it probably doesn't work.
Let's see
But
what it
that's
says.
like the exact interaction I asked from the judge.
Indeed, it says from the hand.
Yeah.
But if you are casting this the second time
Yeah.
with rebound, it says that you exile it, and then it doesn't come back to your
Okay.
hand. It means that it goes directly to
Yeah.
the exile.
And that's the exact thing I asked the judge. So now the question is if I can rework what I exactly did and ask this exact interaction.
Yeah, he asked like 5 turns ago. He asked this situation. The judge told him it would work, probably, and then now in his
And only
upkeep, he's
afterward you decided to activate the ability.
Yes, yes.
Now he last turn he played it, and now in his upkeep he activates the ability with this on the stack to like get it back in his hand. The question is like it's not gonna work, but can he untap the 4 lands?
I'll be back.
So now they just have to figure out if he can untap the 4 lands.
Great camera time.
You receive that information and you choose to activate the ability because of that information. So there is a link between the information and the ability, so you are allowed to untap.
Okay.
So he is allowed to tap, which seems like a fair resolution.
Yeah, I agree.
Protection grid.
Good choice.
Thank you. try my best.
So the end result of all that was Center Soul was cast from exile as part of its
I'm at
rebound.
9, you're at 24.
Larson was not able to use Soulfire Grandmaster to return it to his hand, but he was able to untap his lands, just as part of the confusion there, to undo that.
It's convenient.
So Enduring Victory is a card that Marin has seen in this match already. In fact, has probably seen it this game. I believe it has rebounded. So, yeah, Enduring Victory took down Kolaghan.
Yeah, he's also perhaps thinking of something like Sarkhan's Rage that could be rebounded. But
Pretty much just about any instant or sorcery at this point is buybackable
yes.
with the Soulfire Grandmaster. Which, by the way, I believe is wearing a glaring Aegis.
Yes. Card I'm actually a little bit to see, surprised to see in 2 different feature matches this round. Though it can be a great way to push through some damage with an aggressive red-white deck.
Joel Larson has Falter with buyback, too.
Oh,
Magmatic
interesting.
Chasm.
Magmatic Chasm, yeah. And he does, sure enough, have the Enduring Victory. So as long as Larson leaves up enough mana to cast Enduring Victory and activate Soulfire Grandmaster, which is 9 total, Marine LeBarre is going to have a really tough time attacking with his large green creatures. And Marine staring at a Bathe in Dragonfire, which deals 4 damage, not enough to kill the Soulfire Grandmaster, which is a 4/6 with a +1/+1 counter and Glaring Aegis.
And Glaring Aegis, yeah.
Yep.
Casts. Can't quite see that under the glare. Shockmaw Dragon. There you go.
Now the problem here for Larson is even though he threatens the powerful Enduring Victory plus buying it back with the Grandmaster, he has to essentially keep 9 lands paralyzed in order to threaten that each turn. So it's really hard for him to advance his board while keeping that threat up. Whereas Marine each turn can just play creatures with impunity, and eventually once he gets enough, it'll be profitable for him to attack into that Enduring Victory.
At this point, you have about 17 minutes remaining.
17.
Here, Joel getting a check on time.
This is made even more tricky by the fact that Larson has Magmatic Chasm in his hand, so if he can find the time to cast a few more creatures, he could set up Magmatic Chasm to finish off LeBarre, who's at 9.
But he goes to 28 on the Magnetic Chasm attack.
Right.
But he can't. But he needs 3 attacks as the board stands right now to kill Marin.
Question is what?
So he plays Ugin's Construct. This is fascinating.
Yes.
So he can.
At least you're being honest about it.
So he can sacrifice.
Can I choose?
He has to sacrifice a permanent that's 1 or more colors. So he sacrificed Silk Wrap.
Giving Marine LeBarre back his creature.
Yeah.
So wisely decides not to sacrifice the Glaring Aegis, which would make the Soulfire Grandmaster a 3/3, which would allow Marine LeBarre to kill it with Bathe in Dragonfire. So, yeah, that was a potentially crucial decision, and it looks like Larson made the right decision there. Also, by playing the Ugin's Construct, he's setting up the potential for Magmatic Chasm with buyback, so to speak, and attacking in for 7 damage. Which will give him lethal in 2 turns.
Yep.
So Shockmaw
9, right?
falls to the Enduring Victory.
So,
And
yeah, it looks like Larson is intent on finishing the game quickly since he did give up. He cast the Enduring Victory without buying it back from the Soulfire Grandmaster, which means he's probably planning to win the game in just a few turns.
so here comes the Dashed Martyr Scout. Here comes Magmatic Chasm with the buyback, just in case. It does add up to 9.
And
More
LeBarre
than 9.
with Bathe and Dragonfire in his
Yeah.
hand, but that, of course, is a sorcery, so it's not going to help him here.
It's 12 damage, I believe. No, it's 11. There you go, and there's the hand.
Wow.
Joel Larson advances to 2-1.
What a game.
Marin LeBarre falls to
if I win, I don't
1-2,
win anyway, right?
heading into standard.
I needed to draw.
Yeah, very much alive for day
had to
two.
go down to
Still
eat
very
for the
much
work as
alive
well. I
to
had
make a
to
deep
go
run
with
into the
it.
tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Pending his standard deck. There you see the two players sitting there, the last two in the feature match area. The other matches we watched,
It was the only cliche.
we saw Frank Karsten over Matej Zatlkaj. We saw Patrick Chapin over Janik. And off camera, we missed it, but Adrian Sullivan defeated Arax. Talking about constructed players who are heading in, who are not necessarily known for their limited prowess. Adrian Sullivan, certainly much more well known for his 60-card play and his play with control decks. Now heading into the standard rounds.
I'm excited to see what he brings in constructed. He's often a pretty innovative deck builder.
So when you say excited to see, you're saying, is he going to play blue-white control, or is he going to play blue-black control?
Oh, he's had a pretty wide range over the years. It's true.
So you think Esper control?
He's favored control, but I mean, we've seen him sleeve up mono red in the past, and all sorts of different things. So
absolutely. And if there's a combo deck to be found in the format, you can count on him having at the very least tested it.
Yes.
He has seemed especially comfortable with control decks over the last last few iterations of standard.
That said, he often likes to go a little bit off the beaten path.
It's just a few
this
individual
is a guy who's
cards. Playing Quicken Control. Remember, just at Grand Prix Chicago not too long ago. So.
And then Patrick Chapin, I'm excited to see at the King of the Hill table, 3-0 starting off.
Yeah, absolutely.
A recent Pro Tour champion, Journey into Nyx.
Our Pro Tour Hall of Famer.
Yep.
World Championship finalist. So, I mean, this is a guy who's coming off last year 2 huge events. Hasn't had that big event yet this season, but this could very well be it.
Yeah, and talk about a player with a wide range in constructed.
I wouldn't need. This is a guy who brought Gurmag anglers to the modern format at the last Pro Tour. So it could be anything, but standard is up next. That's what we're going to see. We're going to find out what these guys are doing. Is it going to be some stock decks with Sidisi Vizier, or are people going to go deep? Are we going to see something new? I don't know, but we're going to send it back to right now to the news desk, and then when we get back to the feature match area, it'll be all standard the rest of the way.
All right, thanks very much to Brian David Marshall and Ian Duke bringing you all the limited action. Let us get straight to our Dragon Tracker. How many dragons have we seen in the feature match area? It was 7 in round 1. It was 2 in round 2. So now we want to find out just how many dragons have we seen in action here at Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. It's 14. So 5 in the deciding round of limited. Now we go to constructed. You might think that number might slow down. From what we're hearing, it's actually going to accelerate. Dragons everywhere. All right, let's put a bow on the morning's action. Let's bring you our feature pods. Let's show you what has been happening here. And we began the day with William Jensen and Jacob Wilson. There is the story of their feature pod, and we don't have a winner yet because deep in the round, we're into extra turns. Jacob Wilson and Stefan Berrios are still going to determine who will be 3-0. William Jensen, you heard him talk his way through his draft. He's at 2-1, as is Dan Blunt. 1-2 for Calderon, Little, Nakamura, and Ivan Jai, unfortunately, still trying to get off the mark here at Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir. What about our second feature pod of the day? Let's take a look at what's been going on there. And there you see Hall of Famer from the Netherlands, Jelge Wiegersma, looking for a 6th Pro Tour top 8. He has made the perfect start. Pat Cox, Kevin Demange of France, and Marcelo Posa of Spain are your 2-1s. Karim Al-Tukriri of Italy looking to get his first win still in constructed. So that's them. Now, why don't we talk about some of the players that are at 3-0? Obviously, there are going to be round about 50 players on a perfect 3-0 start. That's just the way Swiss works. 200 win round 1, 100 get to 2-0, 50-ish get to 3-0. So here are a bunch of players who are 3-0. Tom Martell, the Pro Tour Gate Crash champion. He aced his draft pod from the United States. Another player from the United States who has gone to 3-0 is Paul Rietzel, Pro Tour Amsterdam champion, of course. Let's head to France, just next door. Both the Ruel brothers are here, and I can tell you that Olivier Ruel has gone to 3-0. We'll stay in Europe. We'll go to Italy. Alessandro Portaro. Fantastic to see him back on tour. He's had an epic run to get back here. Brilliant job by him. Now, who is Felipe Valdivia, you may be asking? He's from Chile. I had the great pleasure of welcoming him onto the show a couple of weeks ago on Downtime, and he is 3-0. Here, you see, no great Pro Tour record to speak of, no top 8s at the Grand Prix level, but a perfect start for the Chilean. Great job, Felipe. Kyle Bogemers, finalist of Pro Tour San Diego 2010, missed out to Simon Gertzen at that one. He has gone to 3-0, and so has the perennial Grand Prix master Martin User of the Czech Republic. He is 3-0. And it's been a while since he's been at the top of the leaderboard. Also, who else? What about Li Shi-chan, the leader in the Player of the Year race? He has aced his draft pod. He is looking for a 4th Pro Tour top 8 in the last couple of years. The man is insane. Just tremendous effort. Just some of the players at 3-0. All right, well, that puts a bow on the morning. We've got great stuff coming your way. The players are on a lunch break, and what we're going to do is go right the way across the Atlantic. We're going to leave Europe behind for a few minutes, and we're going to go inside R&D. Let's find out what's been going on inside WotC headquarters as they put together this fantastic Dragons of Tarkir set.
So I got a letter when Khans of Tarkir came out, and the letter was, I love dragons. They are the most awesome thing in Magic. Why would you go to a world where all the dragons are dead? I love dragons. Why would you do that? And in my head, I'm thinking of like, you are in for such an awesome, awesome time, dragon lover. Welcome to Seattle, home of Wizards of the Coast and Inside R&D, with me, your host, Rich Hagan. Previously, we explored the world of Fate Reforged, but now, here on Tarkir and Inside R&D, it's time, once again. When we started design for Dragons of Tarkir, we had already, Khans of Tarkir had been in design for about 4 months. Now it's a large set, so we actually started the design for Dragons of Tarkir before Fate Reforged began. So we knew what we needed to do was we needed to make a parallel. Part of doing a time travel thing is it's the present and then the alternate present. It's 2 different timelines. So the relationship between them was very, very important. This block had a lot of the block plan was figuring out how each set reacted to the other sets.
In doing a time travel story, we knew it was going to be a lot of work. There were actually 3 world guides that were made for this block instead of 1. We had to do 1 for Khans of Tarkir, 1 for Fate Reforged, 1 for Dragon Lords of Tarkir, to really make each of these sets unique and as rich visually and lore-wise as each previous set.
We've revisited planes before. We've gone back to Mirrodin, we've gone back to Ravnica, and we get some familiarity there. We know what has been there before, and we get to play on that. Okay, we see some old stuff, we see some new stuff, we see the world has changed. Here we were doing that, but with immediacy, that we were revisiting a plane we were actually still kind of in. So we got to play with that structure and build that structure at the same time. While Dragons of Tarkir was in design, Khans of Tarkir was still in development. We got to work both teams together to build something constructively.
Sarkhan has saved Ugin from death at the hands of Nicol Bolas, and now has returned thousands of years into the future to see his world transformed, to have that Tarkir is now the world that he's always wanted it to be. It's a world ruled by dragons.
The highlight of Dragons of Tarkir are the Dragon Lords themselves. Fate Reforged has previous incarnations of them, legendary gold dragons. Now that there's 10 of them, how are we going to keep both of these cycles apart? So I pushed pretty hard that we need something, some kind of moniker to differentiate them. So there's actually 2. There's Dragon Lord Atarka and legendary creature Elder Dragon, to showcase that the Dragons of Tarkir versions are evolved, they're bigger, they're better, they're more magnificent.
Dromoka is the Dragon Lord that leads the clan that was once the Obzon. And you can see the visual cues that changed. In Khans of Tarkir, they have the structures that are like pyramids with the tops cut off. But in Dragons of Tarkir, those shapes have been inverted, so they're wider at the top, which is supposed to be a landing pad for dragons. That's what visually one of the visual changes we were doing between Khans, Fate, and Dragons of Tarkir.
So Dragon Lord Dromoka, we wanted something to embody toughness, like scales and hardship that Dromoka could fight through anything. So that's why there's some life gain on him. You can't counter him, and you actually can't do stuff during my turn if I have the Dragon Lord Dromoka. So that is our way of making a kind of stalwart Dragon Lord.
One of the things that we worked on in Dragons of Tarkir is we're going to be putting dragons in each of the 5 colors. So to make them visually distinct and unique to the Dragons of Tarkir, each of them had to have a specific look. Ojutais and the Ojutai breed of dragons are feathered dragons. And it took a lot of work to get there because could we do a dragon with feathers? Was that going to be a phoenix? I think that we ended up in a really good spot. I love the way that the Ojutai dragons look.
So Ojutai is actually one of my favorite dragons in the set. I've been a big proponent of trying the words here, like that it has hexproof while it's untapped. I feel that, you know, our players have made it pretty clear to us that hexproof can be really frustrating, but part of that is I think that there's just really no point of interaction. I feel like it's good that he can stay back and be a stable blocker. Like I feel like that is one of the good things about hexproof is like, all right, I just need to stabilize. Let me keep this creature on the board to stop the swarm of creatures hitting me.
Dragon Lord Silumgar embodies this idea of corpulence and corruption and vanity in the center of the jungle. He's got hordes of undead bringing him offerings and just feeding him constantly. And as a symbol, like the ultimate symbol of his vanity, he's wearing on his around his neck the preserved corpse of his one-time enemy Tassiger.
Dragon Lord Silumgar, I think, is one of the more powerful dragons in the set. We had sort of been struggling to find exactly what we wanted to put on this effect. Someone had mentioned, how about if it's a big sower of temptation? And that's sort of struck a chord with me. And then it's like, but, you know, is that good enough? I actually was the one that suggested to add or Planeswalker onto that. And then at that point I felt that, yeah, that really did start to feel like a super cool mythic dragon.
Dragon Lord Kolagon is another dragon I really like the look of. She's 4-winged. She's also feathered. She sort of embodies the force of the dragon Tempest. And you'd see her flying over the battlefield, wings outstretched. Her breath weapon is lightning. She's radiating lightning. All of her broodlings are radiating lightning. And you can see the Kolagon warriors have these structures that come off their backs that act as lightning rods to charge them up as they ride into battle.
Her final ability is sort of an odd-looking one. It sort of stemmed from the fact that I wanted to give a feel that she, you know, that you killed things and you killed them dead, and like that they really couldn't come back if, like, you know, if you got rid of that creature, it's gone. But in terms of our color pies, black and red don't really like set the rules. Like, no, you can't play cards in your graveyard. That would be more of a white ability. So how do we do this in black and red? And then, you know, in terms of talking with the design team, well, how about if we just really punish you for playing a card out of your graveyard? So it's not that you can't play the card, but 10 life's a lot of life.
Dragon Lord Tarkir was always envisioned as the largest of the Dragon Lords. Green-red is traditionally a pretty common color for dragons, and we knew that we wanted to really go over the top with her. Earlier versions, you know, were similarly as large, and it took us a long time to figure out exactly what we wanted her abilities to be. We didn't want her to just be humongous giant flyer. What we eventually found was that dealing damage when she entered the battlefield was the perfect way to show off just how large she was, so she could clear off the little things out of her way and only have to worry about just killing her opponent.
So we knew that we wanted to do new incarnations of the Khans, but unlike the Dragon Lords, which actually kind of ascend and get better, bigger, stronger, we actually want to contrast it with the Khans that kind of get smaller and punier and more diminutive to sort of overplay this difference that now the dragons are in charge, the Khans aren't in charge. So in general, we pulled them down in colors, down in size, down in mana cost to show that the dragons rule this plane now.
Now this meant that we got to do a really cool time travel trope that is one of the classics of, oh, look how the mighty have fallen, or how this person has risen from being, a good level to even a higher level. And that gave us a great storytelling opportunity to really look at who these characters were and what may have been different with them in the alternate timeline.
In Khans of Tarkir, Onofenza was the Khan of the Abzan. In Dragons of Tarkir, Dromica has outlawed worship of the kin trees and outlawed ancestor worship. And for that, Onofenza has been executed, so she comes back as a spirit in Dragons of Tarkir.
Sidisi, in her very early form, was pretty much just as printed. It was a card that had exploit that allowed you to search up a card. This is a very evil and plotting sort of feeling card, and the whole design team latched onto it and liked it very much. When we sent it out to a larger group within the company, it was just a favorite in the company.
Zergo Bellstriker is us kind of playing a pretty big joke on Zergo himself, to where he's all the way down in the ranks, to where instead of going out, being the Khan, leading the charge, crushing skulls, he actually is the one that just rings the bell when trouble's around. So we thought that it would be hilarious for him to have dash but also be very small, and he has kind of this cowardly ability, the coward orc ability, where you can't block big things.
So we toyed around a lot with the different ideas for Sirach in the set. One of the tricky things is we've had some very powerful cards already in standard, like including Pelukranos. So a lot of this is that we just needed to find places where this card would do things that a card like that wouldn't do. Eventually we settled upon giving all your creatures haste if you had the formidable bonus, and that could just move it into different styles of decks.
So a lot of people are like, so when did you know that Narset was going to become a Planeswalker? And I'm like, before just about anything, I knew Narset. Like, we knew very early on that once we had planned it, like Creator said, we really love this idea of one of the Khans becomes a Planeswalker. And we had a gap because Venser was the white-blue Planeswalker, and he's no more, and so we liked the idea of filling in that gap with a new white-blue Planeswalker. And so they actually kind of worked backwards. They knew they needed a white-blue Planeswalker, like, okay, well, there's one clear option because of the 5 wedges. Only one of them is white and blue. And so Narset, from almost the earliest version, we knew she was destined to become a Planeswalker.
So one of the most eye-catching things with Narset Transcendent, I think to a lot of people, is just her huge starting loyalty. This is something that she is sort of one of our initial experiments with having a Planeswalker with a higher loyalty that might sit on the board a little bit longer, might have a slightly less powerful effect than on some of the other Planeswalkers you've seen, where it's not necessarily I have to answer this immediately or I lose, but this becomes a real choice of, do I go after the Planeswalker or do I go after the player? I feel like Ashiok is also maybe in a somewhat similar space. So in general, we're going to do more experimentation with having Planeswalkers that have higher loyalties and aren't necessarily a must answer or must kill. It might be worth knocking Narset down to the point where she can't use her rebound ability, but you get the idea.
Sarkhan, who has traveled the multiverse after leaving Tarkir, has finally returned, has finally created the world that he longed for, a world that was ruled by majestic dragons. And you can see he's no longer Sarkhan the Mad. Visually, he had horns, actually literal horns coming off of his costuming in Khans of Tarkir, and now that's gone. Literally a weight has been lifted from his shoulders.
I've thrown aside my own past. I'm a curiosity now.
So Sarkhan Unbroken shows Sarkhan at a new reforged as a teamer shaman who still summons dragons, as you would always expect Sarkhan to do. We gave him a blue ability where he draws cards, gets mana, kind of combining blue and green and red. And we fit the card Dragonstorm in the set by putting it on Sarkhan's ultimate.
When we were making Khans of Tarkir and we knew we were doing dragons, we said, what are the fun things we can do with all the timelines? How can the mighty Khan become someone who rings bells for a living, and how can we make all these cool changes? So one of the things that I felt really strong about is I said to the creative team, I go, here's just an ask from me. Something has to not change. Something, like, it doesn't matter. Like, Ugin's alive and dragons are alive, and to this one thing, it just doesn't matter. That its life is the same. And so Summit Prowler is that creature. It shows up in Khans of Tarkir, it shows up in Dragons of Tarkir. The Yeti's like, whatever. I'm a Yeti, I'm doing my thing. Now the funny thing is, it's the same art, except with dragons in the background. So it's like, it's slightly different. Like, okay, This Yeti lives in a world of dragons, or the other Yeti lived in a world without dragons. But you know what? The Yeti doesn't care. The Yeti, he just lives on.
That's just outstanding. I love Summit Prowler. Plenty more from Inside R&D to come tomorrow and Sunday lunchtime, parts 2 and 3 of that documentary series for you. I can tell you that Stefan Berrios defeated Jacob Wilson to go to 3-0. The Pro Tour is simmering very nicely, thank you. It's time to bring it to the boil. We move to Standard, and to set it all up for us, we sat down last night with Randy Buehler. All right, Randy, here we go. It's the Standard overview once again, and the impact of Dragons of Tarkir. Off you go.
Yeah, this set is super deep, and the Standard is wide open, so I actually put together fully a top 20 Dragons of Tarkir cards in Standard, and I still feel like I left cards out. I didn't put Shore Crash Elemental on the list. If there's a comeback from Mono Blue Devotion, it's going to have Shore Crasher Elemental. I didn't have room for Dragon Whisperer or Den Protector, which combos so well with Death Mist Raster. Secure the Waste is going to show up in the Jeskai Tokens decks. Duress is back.
Okay.
Just sideboard color hosers like Self-Inflicted
Randy,
Wound. There's
Randy,
so many cards.
Breathe. Okay. Breathe fire. Breathe ice. Breathe what all the other
Nice.
dragons are doing. Why don't we start with ice? Number 20, it's Icefall Regent.
Absolutely. There are going to be a lot of dragons this weekend. There are going to be a lot of dragons in this top 20 list. There's going to be a lot of dragons in the feature match area. It's going to be awesome. Icefall Regent is obviously very good. 4/3 flying is nice. It's just 5 mana. It's a little bit cheaper than some of the other dragons. And yeah, just being able to lock down an opponent's creature and mess with their ability to get your dragon off the table it's a powerful place to be in this format.
So we began with a dragon. Number 19, we refer to a dragon. It's Atarka's Command.
Yeah, this card is a little sneaky because it's not immediately obvious what you're supposed to do with it. It's not like there's a burn deck in the Standard like there would be in Modern. But if you have the super aggressive mono red deck, the very low to the ground, some people will call it, you're going wide with a bunch of tokens, just the ability to give all your creatures +1/+1 is great. You hit super hard in those decks. And there are a lot of people out there that are just like, I just don't want to get paired against the Atarka's Command deck. Just, I got everything else under control, but just like the red weenies that go wide and Command coming out from nowhere, it does a lot of damage.
So we stay with the dragon theme, and we're just going straight to dragons. It is Dragon Lord Silumgar.
Yeah, blue-black control is definitely a thing. It got a couple of different tools from this set. Dragon Lord Silumgar is chief among them. It's not the kind of card you're going to play 4 of. It's not the kind of card you're going to build your whole deck around. But, you know, being able to just steal their best thing. I mean, the dream is you steal their Planeswalker when you're about to ultimate it. But whatever, steal whatever it is. Just having a dragon that can do that. And it even combos nicely with the other Silumgar as well.
So that was mythic, Dragon Lord Silumgar. Generally, planeswalkers are pretty mythic beings. Let's see who's next. It's Sarkhan Unbroken.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know if there's actually a deck for Sarkhan.
All right.
I couldn't leave him out, though. Like, the card is so powerful. It's so flavorful. It's just a great card. It's got a ton of power. I mean, if somebody came up with a deck to really take advantage of all this power, you know, we may see them make a deep run in this tournament. So it's a card that I feel like it belonged in the top 20, even though I'm not quite sure exactly where the home is. But just, it's a great card. And kind of fits the dragon theme, too. I don't know, does he count as a dragon when we're counting up how many dragons we have?
I think we could. I mean, he certainly turns up with 1 attached, because a lot of the time that's what you're going to do. You're going to start off at 2 with a 4/4 to protect you. So
exactly.
Let's stay with Planeswalkers, and let's go to another card that maybe you're going to say the same again. Does Narset Transcendent have a deck?
More so than Sarkhan.
Okay.
It fits naturally into some of the blue-black control deck can easily just become an Esper control deck. You know, you could be blue-white control, splashing black, but somewhere in that sort of Esper color set, whether you're blue-white, blue-white-black, blue-black, Narset's great in that deck. I mean, it starts with so much loyalty. The ability to draw extra cards is nice. You know, the ability to give your spells rebound is nice. It's a really powerful planeswalker in those control decks. I think that, yeah, I think Narset's got a more obvious home than Sarkhan. Maybe not quite as much raw power, but definitely a more obvious home.
And will we see 4 of in the decks that run it? Do they want to just absolutely make her as quickly as they can?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's more of a 2 or 3 of, but we'll see.
All right. So next up, let's go back to Dragonland. It is Dragon Lord Atarka. It's the big one at 8-8.
Yeah, and in 15th place here, there's starting to be a trend. We'll see how long it takes you to pick up on my trend here.
Is it dragons?
Well, yeah, there's that trend, absolutely. But Dragon Lord Atarka, the biggest and baddest of all the dragons. The red-green deck is going to show up in a couple of different flavors. Red-green is definitely going to be one of the big players this weekend. And I think sort of the bigger version, if you want your, the Courser Caryatid version of the red-green deck, can absolutely go all the way to Atarka at 7 mana. Super powerful, just blow up everybody, 8/8 trample flying, kills people pretty fast.
One of the beauties of the game is that if red-green is not for you, well, there's another Dragon Lord coming right along behind it. For people like me, it's Dragon Lord Ojutai.
Ojutai's great. I mean, it looks a little fragile at 5/4, but then you play it, and you realize, wait, it's not actually fragile. It's actually hexproof, unless I actively choose that I'm willing to attack with it. And then if you do attack with it, you get awesome toys to play with. So this is just anything sort of blue-white control-ish wants Dragon Lord Ojutai. And I think it's actually one of the reasons that, the control decks maybe are going to skew a little more white. Maybe they stay blue-black, but between Narset and Ojutai, I feel like there's real big rewards for going into white now.
Next up, a very small card, Lightning Berserker.
Yeah, I mentioned the Go Wide red deck. This is one of the new toys, and at 13th, it's yet another red card that we've seen in this countdown so far. Lightning Berserker can come out. It's essentially, they called it Fireball with buyback. You dash this guy out, and if your opponent has a deck full of sorcery speed removal, they never get him, right? He dashes out, you tap all your mountains to just fire breathe, hit him for, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and then he comes safely back into your hand where they can't get him with their wrath effects. It's a nice little role player, and just being able to play just as a 1-drop, just casting it sort of the normal way can also be powerful in those decks. So maybe not the best red 1-drop in the set, but a good one.
So if Lightning Berserker is God's punishment for playing sorcery speed removal, how about playing some instant speed removal and you pay the ultimate price?
Yeah, this is a reprint, so I mean maybe not the sexiest card in the file, but it's good. It is exactly what the black control-ish decks want. Bile Blight is so hard on your mana. Being able to go BB on turn 2 and then, dissolve on turn 3 doesn't really work, but ultimate price into dissolve, much easier to pull off. This is just an excellent removal spell, giving you the ability to just trade for 1 with whatever, most of the things your opponent is going to play, you can trade 1 with.
Here comes number 11. It's Haven of the Spirit Dragon. Tell us about this.
Well, first of all, I'm going to call this an honorary red card.
Okay.
Because mostly what it gets back is it gets back dragons, right? It gets back Thunderbreak Regent, it gets back Stormbreath Dragon. And it gives those decks, I mean, especially the red-green, it's usually going to be in the red-green dragon decks. It doesn't have to be. But it's both a color fixer, and the thing is, it's card drawing. Like, you get to play with effectively a creature land, or a land that turns into a spell, turns into whatever giant dragon you need back. Nobody else in the format gets to turn their extra lands into spells, into powerful threats, the way Haven of the Spirit Dragon does. So it's a really, really nice weapon for the reddish decks to have in their arsenal.
Into the top 10 we go. It's Death Mist Raptor at 10.
Yeah, this card, there's just so much value. I mean, it's 3/3 for 3 at Death Touch, which is just great if you play it vanilla, but the ability to Megamorph it and then flip it over as a 4/4 is awesome. And then it's got this recursive ability to just keep coming back and back. You know what? There's some Green Devotion decks floating around the standard. Green-White Devotion has been around, is still going to be around. We should see some of that. There's Den Protector in the set. There's a lot of ways to kind of get that card advantage engine rolling here, and it's not like you had to sacrifice anything to get it. You get a 3/3 Death Toucher for 3. The card's totally fine face up.
Very good. Here's another reprint. Bit surprised to see this as high as it is. Why have you gone for Dragon Fodder here?
It just fits into the Jeskai Tokens deck so well. Like, that deck has been playing Hordling Outburst for forever.
Right.
There's so many 3s. Being able to get your tokens started at 2 mana, it's a big deal. So it's good in the Jeskai Tokens decks. It's also good in just the mono red aggro decks. Especially, if you're in the Atarka's Command variety in particular, that ability to just make multiple creatures on turn 2. I mean, it's sort of 2 power, 2 toughness for 2 mana, which is a reasonable rate, especially in red. But then so many ways to take advantage of the fact that I have that in multiple bodies instead of just the one body. Also, it's an odd number, so it's a red card.
It's a red card, right. Okay, here's number 8. It's Surak, the Hunt Caller.
This guy hits so hard. 5/4 on turn 4, and usually going to come down with haste, effectively. Like, you're usually going to have 3 power amongst your other creatures, whether it's Elvish Mystics or whatever. So he's usually going to come down, immediately give himself haste, and then next turn, give whatever, the dragon that you follow him up with, haste. Just super hard-hitting card, very powerful. The kind of card I would expect, like, a Brian Kibler to be playing, right? Not just Brian Kibler, but green-white, green-red, lots of places he's going to show up.
Okay, not one card, but a whole cycle now. Tell us about the Dragon Reveal cycle.
Yeah, these cards are great. I think Silumgar's Scorn is actually going to be the most impactful of these. Again, it's because it lets that control deck, that blue-black control deck, be heavy blue, right? Being able to go UU for my counterspell instead of going BB for my Bile Blight, right? It lets that deck be a little heavier blue and a little more consistent. And it doesn't look like the most powerful, but that Force Spike ability, if it's turn 2, it's plenty good enough. Turn 3, turn 4, when your opponent is curving out, you're going to be able to counter something with the Force Spike ability, even if you don't have the dragon. And then when you do have the dragon, being able to say no to whatever you want for 2 mana is great. I mean, look, Draconic Roar is going to show up plenty as well, and you may even see some Foul Tongue Invocation. But I actually think it's Silumgar's Scorn that's going to have the biggest impact there.
Well, in that case, maybe we can anticipate seeing some blue cards.
We are going to see blue cards. And anticipate, it's so good. It's just exactly what these cards want. It's me reminiscing about mono blue control cards, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a mono blue control deck. It also goes great in the Jeskai Tokens deck.
Sure. Like
an instant that, triggers your Jeskai Ascendancy, finds you whatever it is that you want. I mean, it's going to show up in the control decks, but it's also going to show up in the Jeskai Tokens decks, and it's going to be great in both of them. Allows you to fix your mana if that's what you need. Allows you to find your threats if that's what you need. Just a great, solid, not the flashiest card, but a spectacular role player.
If Lightning Berserker isn't the best 1-drop, what is?
Well, that would be Zurgo. He's not smashing helms anymore. He's just striking a bell, but I think this version, I'd rather have this version. I mean, I'm all about efficiency. 1 mana, 2/2. So you take Ironclaw Orcs, which showed up in the world's top 8 back in the 90s.
1 and a red.
Yeah, it was just this card, except it cost twice as much mana and didn't have the dash ability. That card used to be good enough back in the day. Creatures have gotten a little better yet. Zurgo Bellstriker, just one of the best 1-drops Red has ever gotten its hands on. I mean, if it wasn't for the legend drawback, quote-unquote drawback, you can't really play 4 of them. Well, you can't play multiples at the same time. Maybe he's good enough that you play 4 anyway. Just a spectacular aggressive red creature. Going to show up in all of the aggro versions of the red list. We're all going to start with this guy.
Let's go grindy. Sidisi Undead Vizier.
Yeah, Sidisi's great. That exploit ability, just the ability to go get whatever card you want. You may not see her as 4 ofs and a whole bunch of different deck lists, but having a couple of these floating around the top of your curve and just giving you the ability to access this one of or that one of or the perfect card for the perfect situation just gives you so much flexibility, and your ability to find exactly the perfect card for the perfect situation, exactly what a lot of the the grindy decks want, whether it's an Obzon deck, maybe a Sidisi Whip deck, used to be named after the other Sidisi, but they work just fine side by side in that deck as well.
Oddly, at 3, it's a red card, it's Roast.
Yeah, the red in this set is just insane. Literally half of the top 20 is red cards. Every odd-numbered card has been red, and Roast is just great. Suddenly, red has the ability to get the Rhino out of the way. Suddenly, red has the ability to get whatever it cares about out of the way, whether it's a dragon. You've even got the ability to roast your own Hornet's Nest. Like, this card does so many things. Pelucranos goes away, just get rid of all of it. And that removal spell, I mean, it's a sorcery, and it doesn't deal damage to players. I mean, it doesn't even look like your typical red card, but that's part of the reason why I think this is going to have such a big impact. It solves so many problems, allows you to play red decks and just not have to worry about the Siege Rhinos and the big toughness creatures that normally used to just slow your whole army down.
Number 2 is Dromoka's Command.
Yeah, this card is great. The ability to kill enchantments is awesome. Even Whip of Erebos may not show up as much just because there's so much of this random enchantment removal floating around the environment. The ability to fight is really what your green-white deck wants anyway. Throwing a +1/+1 counter on a creature is almost like this free bonus. Just does a lot of different things in a lot of different scenarios for just 2 mana.
And finally, your number 1 card from Dragons of Tarkir for Standard is Thunderbreak Regent.
Yeah, it's a dragon. Shocking, right? This is the cheapest of the dragons. At 4 mana, that's a lot of the reason why this is number 1. I'm not saying it's more powerful than any of the Dragon Lords, but 4 mana, you can run 4 of these. 4/4, you're going to get some value, because even if they remove it, they're going to take some damage along the way, and that's all most of these red decks actually need to be able to do is deal some damage. I'll get 3 damage out of this, and you're forced to deal with it. 4/4 flying, they're not messing around. That card hits hard one way or the other. 6 dragons in this top 20, and that's not even counting the dragons' havens or their fodder or their reveal cycles, but Thunderbreak Regent, the best of them.
Will Red leave the field for dead here at Pro Tour Dragons of Tarkir? It's time to find out in the world of Standard.